For 25 years, Keith Summey has been the mayor of the City of North Charleston, and now he's asking residents to give him 4 more years to complete projects and solve issues for many residents in the city. I sit down exclusively with the mayor for a special edition of Quintin's Close-Ups. And if you haven't already, subscribe to my YouTube channel and download my free Quintin's Close-Ups app in your Apple or Google Play Store. Mayor Keith Summey, welcome back to Quintin's Close-Ups.
Well, thank you for having me again.
It's a pleasure as always, and I like talking to you because you tell the truth.
Even when it hurts.
And you're not sending me any nasty text messages or messages after the interviews like other people do. But obviously, you are the current mayor of the City of North Charleston, and now you're coming up for re-election. It's 10 days before re-election. What is it like to be you?
Tired. Because, when you're campaigning, and I don't blend that in with my office hours. And so a lot of evenings and Saturdays and Sundays, I'm out in neighborhoods or what have you. We've probably had 18 different cookouts. And that's how I normally have always tried to get with the folks, because it's an opportunity where they can come, sit down, talk, have open dialogue with me on any subject that they desire. And it's not in an environment where they may feel uncomfortable. So I think it's important that elected officials, especially in local government, needs to make themselves accessible to all the people.
All the people. When you're going out talking to these people, what are the needs right now in all the districts in the City of North Charleston?
Well, we all know that the economy has changed so drastically in the last 10 years especially. Affordable housing is a major issue, and we've been working with groups of people. The Housing Authority actually sold off 100 lots. Private developer is building homes. Most of them are attached townhomes, but they're averaging around $200,000 in price. And, if you look at finding ways for folks to finance these, then the cost of the home is much cheaper, even with the taxes and insurance, than it is the rental property of the same size. And yet they've got ownership in it. And that is the key component. What we have also seen is there's a large number of young people that do not want to live in homes. And that's why we've seen the rapidly growing number of apartment complexes that have been built. And, everything is sort of cyclical.
Yeah.
Because my wife even asked me the other day, she said, well, when that trend changes, what happens? I said, the older, more antiquated buildings will go away and new construction will start probably in single-family homes. Because everything transitions in life. And it would be great if we could put the timeline on it when it happens, but it's normally the folks themselves that determine when that transitions and when it happens. But we've got a gentleman that we're working with to build 20 new homes in Union Heights. We're working with him because they're all substandard size lots. So we've got to find ways to make not only the houses fit on the lot, that's not as bad an issue, is making sure at least we've got one off-street parking.
Sure.
Because those streets were built back before current standards and codes, and so they're narrow, and a lot of them aren't on the street, and in case of an emergency with a fire truck or what have you, it's difficult to get in. So we're trying to, as we see that area redevelop, find ways to make it work where it's more sustainable and helps us with the services that we render in those areas as well. Now, we're going to be inheriting from the highway department the old Spruill Avenue entrance. And what my vision is, and I have not had it passed by council yet, is I want to reconnect the streets because that came in and divided the neighborhood. And I want to reconnect those streets, and then by doing that, you're creating lots as well. There's probably 75 to 100 empty lots in that neighborhood now. And if you're going to get young families wanting to move back into the neighborhoods, even though a lot of them were raised there, you're going to have to change the environment of the neighborhood. You're going to have to make it a little more, the housing a little more modern, updated, as a blend. And so that's one of the key areas in the southern end we're working. And then we're working with the housing authority selling that land to a private developer, developing affordable housing in that area as well. Other neighborhoods, we have affordable housing. The problem is a lot of it ended up being rental as people moved out. People saw the advantage of buying rental property. A lot of it wasn't maintained to the degree it was, but the housing stock is solid. And we're seeing people now buying them and rehabbing them. The issue is we've got to make sure that that rehabilitation doesn't price out the homes out of the mid-range for people to live in.
Is gentrification a problem here?
North Charleston's gentrification is not nearly as significant as the City of Charleston. I mean, the City of Charleston, I think it was in 2014 through 18, it was the number 5 ranked gentrifying city in the country. And the 4 years before that, it was number 1. Well, we haven't had that. In fact, part of that gentrification has moved into North Charleston, and we've welcomed them into our city. But what we've got to do is make sure that that gentrification doesn't fall off the peninsula on up into the south end of the city.
South end of the city. When can we expect a grocery store?
We see more grocery stores closing than we see opening. The ones that are opening are what I would refer to my wife's chagrin, probably as a foo-foo grocery store, where you can go in and buy just about anything you want, not just groceries. And it caters to a higher level of clientele. And if you look in North Charleston, there's very few of those stores that are offered anywhere, maybe in the Upper Dorchester Road corridor. And then the competitiveness that's happening where you've got people that are ordering their food online. Right. You can now call one of the grocery stores and have it delivered to your house. Right. And so that along with the average income level of the folks in the southern end, and I know that those folks buy groceries. Convincing a retailer that that's the case has been extremely difficult, to the point that we've offered free land to build a grocery store on. We would even build and lease, sure. What have you, but we have not found one single chain grocery that is interested. So we've tried to look at other types of grocery stores. I don't think we need to settle for a 4th-class grocery establishment. I think we need to have something that offers to the community choices. Not that you can go in, there's only one kind of green bean you can buy, or very limited in produce quality, and even in the food meat market side. So I believe as we see whatever ends up being developed over at the hospital site, and whatever happens to the rest of the property at the old Shipwatch Square site, And now we know that the tenant that's in the old Kmart building is going to be relocating into a new building. They're going to stay in North Charleston, but it's not going to be in that area. That area is going to be coming open. So the opportunity to create a synergy of activity in those areas, I think, enhances our chances of finding a quality grocery store.
Is it the income levels or is it the crime rate on the south end as people saying, hey, we don't want a grocery store here?
I think it's purely income level. The crime rates, I mean, heck, I'll build a police station inside it, or next to it. That's not the big issue. I mean, for 30 years ago, there were shoplifting issues in Pine Haven when it was there. And then it became Shipwatch Square. But those things are easily taken care of to the degree, I mean, shoplifting occurs in every retail store probably in the country. And I don't want it to be misled that that would be a higher problem for us down there. Those are management problems and issues that you can deal with. The crime rate, actually, the southern end of the city, we've seen a decline in the crime rate, and we've seen some of the other areas have a tilt up. But crime rates are up in Somerville, Goose Creek, especially where guns are being used. Even in the more rural areas of those counties, we're seeing it increase. That's a social issue that we have to deal with no matter where you live. And so, and the biggest way to do that is limit the number of guns on the street. But to be honest with you, 90% of the crimes that we have that guns are used the guns are not being used by the registered owners of the guns. So it's whether they're being stolen out of vehicles, what have you, or if there's a path that brings them into this community. But it's something that we're coordinating more with the other local police departments. There's even been a little hike now in the city of Charleston between James Island and even in the peninsula. And so it's an issue, it's a social issue that we all have to work on and work together, creating opportunity for our kids, creating opportunity then as they advance through the educational system. And one of the issues that we have is we have not adequately prepared our kids for the jobs that have come in. And that's why you've seen this larger influx of new people moving in. We've been working with the school district, and we're very supportive of the new facility going across from North Charleston High School. I know there were some people upset because that was the athletic. I played football there in the 60s. Right. And so I had memories of that field as well. My memories are not as important as us preparing our young people for the jobs that are coming into this community. And that building alone will service all of the North Charleston high schools with a skilled labor portion, and then the upper level will be high-tech training. So people will not have to move into this area as job needs occur. We can train our people to take those jobs, and most of them are median or above median income level jobs. That's how we resolve that issue of preparing our people to take the jobs, a little bit of quality of life, instead of feeling like they're stagnant and there's no light at the end of the tunnel.
Quality of life. How do you define that in 2019 in the city of North Charleston?
Well, the quality of life, I think, is that our folks can go to work, they can pay their bills, they can make sure their children have adequate clothing, food, and activity, and that their children are getting a quality education. I think above and beyond that is more in how that person wants to advance beyond Um, but what we've got to do is make sure that that person that wants to advance has the opportunity to do it and the skill sets and ability to do it by providing that for them in this community.
And you talk about obviously the community and the children and activities. I got to take you to the North Charleston Athletic Center.
I am so proud of that facility, and it's been busy. I rode by yesterday, and there must have been 40 cars there of people taking advantage on a Sunday of either playing basketball, or they could be doing volleyball, they could be doing pickleball. It has amazed me the number of seniors that come, especially now with school in session. The early morning hours, the kids can't get there, so these seniors are in there playing pickleball. I mean, and it's amazing to watch that. But I think that it's going to be a draw where Monday through Thursday and even through midday Friday, our kids have it. But then we're able to bring in events that our kids can't afford to travel to go, bring those to us, and then we actually receive ancillary revenue, hotel, motel accommodations fees, food and beverage tax, sales tax, that our families have been having to pay to take their kids to events. And a lot of our families can't afford to do that. And so this makes it, those type of activities and events, more accessible to mid-level range children. And that is the key component why it was built. The ancillary uses are even greater than I anticipated.
Let me go to the Post and Courier editorial. Obviously, they endorsed you for re-election for mayor. And I want to pick apart of that particular editorial they wrote. They said this quote, Mr. Summey admits that when he first took office in 1994, the city that had prided itself on being developer-friendly wasn't very choosy about which businesses it wanted in the city. Business-friendly. When you look back to 1994 to now, was that a mistake in your mind?
No, it was a must. We were losing the shipyard. There were over 6,000 civilian jobs going away. And we had credit for half of the military that stayed there for our population on federal funding and what have you. So that was another 10,000. So we were losing 16,000 jobs, of which we knew at least 10,000 were moving away. And others were taking jobs to maintain getting their retirement. They were taking transfers into other federal jobs across the Southeast. And retail business was scared of how they were going to be able to operate with the loss of these people. And what we had to do is make them understand that we're going to grow. We're going to build it back. In fact, the year that the base closed in '96, retail sales increased. And when we were going after jobs, we would have loved to go after high-tech jobs, higher-paying jobs, what have you. But we also needed to bring in jobs that folks that we had living here had the skill sets to take. And so we ended up getting call centers and things of that nature that paid a median level pay, but not a high-end pay. And we still have those median levels. And everything is a chart, starts here and ends here in income level. Well, we were here. And now we're trying to add the here to go with that, so it creates more activity. The more money that is spent in retail and other things within a community creates more opportunities in those. And that's what I did when I was a teenager. I mean, when I was 12, I was selling peaches on the side of the road in Walterboro. And then by the time I was 13, I was managing a little store by the gentleman. It's called Keith's Meat Market. And he did Red Barn Barbecue. So he worked and cooked on Friday night, Saturdays. So here I was working this little store. But the training I got in dealing with people was wonderful. And I think our high school kids need to have the opportunity to work in businesses that teaches them two things: communication skills and also work ethic. Because work ethic carries you a long way. If I've got somebody that's working for me that I know is putting forth everything they can to get the job done, and they may not be as fast as this person over here, but they're also being very careful in what they're doing, that it's done correctly.
Sure.
At the end of the day, I want that person that's going to be consistent all the time. And that's what we're trying now to make sure that our children understand. And I'm glad to see the school district working with us to try to accomplish that. Not being as successful as you would like to be is not as bad as not being successful because you didn't try. And so I think that we have to come together, not just the school district, but the local governments, working together to create opportunity and enhancement of quality of life.
And they also said this too, quote, under Mr. Summey's guidance, the city enhanced its reputation as the hub of the Lowcountry with a new intermodal transit center. In the coming years, North Charleston will be the heart of the Lowcountry rapid transit bus system that could change the way Tri-County residents commute. Mayor Summey correctly recognizes infill development opportunities for retail and housing that could emerge from putting the right planning and zoning in place along the route ahead of the mass transit system. What infill development opportunities are out there for the city right now, and what zoning laws would you implement for infill development?
Well, if you travel on Rivers Avenue and you've seen new development recently from aviation up, but we haven't seen a lot of new development. We've had Shipwatch, not Shipwatch, but the shopping center at Remount and Rivers has had a facelift and got a new company that's come in, and some of the stores have been infilled. You've seen some rehab of some of the other buildings. Car dealership is back on the corner, and we're trying to work that south. And what you've got to do is have a mix of retail, commercial, office opportunity that will cater to people living in those. Part of the issue of mass transit is having people live closer to where they work. And so we've got to make sure that we've got the opportunity for those people who live in that area. Some of these job opportunities are going to open up for them. And then there's other areas that we can add additional housing to that creates housing for those people who work in that area as well. And people have to understand this is a long time process. This is not an overnight change. This is the first transit study that we've done. You do them about every 10 years, they come out. And you look at what's transpired from the last study, what needs to be changed in that study, because things change, and that's why you have to reassess. And I think all of us know that mass transit is an answer, but it has to be convenient or people won't use it. You have to create it where it doesn't take you 2 hours to get from point A to point B to go to work, 2 hours to come back. Then your 8-hour day has become a 12-hour workday. So we have to make it efficient. And I think we're all pulling together to accomplish that. But we also can't let it deter the quality of life of the people who live in that corridor as well. Getting people from point A to point B, and it's not serving anything in between, is something that we've got to figure out. How do we do that?
They also said this too, quote, Mayor Summey is justifiably proud of the city's 2 new community centers that already have 2,000 members, and 2 more centers are on the way for the Westcott and Shakora areas. The Aquatic Center under construction off of Patriot Boulevard and a new free gym complex near Rivers Avenue and Remount Road also will double as opportunities to attract visitors for events that will mean added revenue for the city and area businesses. You touched on it a little bit, but But what's the expected revenues from those opportunities in area businesses?
Well, the expected revenue for the city is to try to get as close to a break even to operate it, not pay for the building, but the daily operations. But the people that will be coming into the area then will use the restaurants, motels, hotels, and retail while they're here. And so that is a great opportunity, because what that does is it creates additional jobs for those people providing the service, but it also creates additional revenue to the city to pay for the expansions and the things we're doing. One of the things that they misquoted in that article was it's not community centers. These are 2 new senior centers. These are for 55 and older, and they've been open about a year, and we've already got 2,000 members. That I went Saturday night. They had Friday night. They had a Halloween party at one of them, and I went by to speak to them. And we had probably 250 seniors dressed in costume. But what it creates is an opportunity for the socialization, the coming together. You've got a senior that maybe their spouse has passed, and they just don't get out around other people. The communication that is occurring in these buildings, the smiles, the laughter that I hear. One of my former council members was at this thing, and he's not on council anymore, but he was dressed up in his costume, and he said this is one of the best things that the city has ever done, is creating facilities for our seniors. Now, we've got the one on Dorchester Road and the one in Northwoods. We're going to do one down in the south end of the city, down by Military Magnet. We do them next to fire stations, because we have EMT certified firefighters. Somebody overextends because you got exercise room, you got a swimming exercise pool, and we're going to do one in the south end, and then we need to do one up in the north end in Dorchester County, and that will give us a 4 location. And what people need to understand, when you're a member of one, you're a member of all. So you don't have to go to the same senior center all the time. You can use any of them. And when you walk in, it's got a kiosk about classes that are coming up, or opportunities to do little skill sets. It is busy the entire time that they're open. And, when I go in there and I see this cross-section of people, from Hispanic, African American, Caucasian, sitting at the tables together, playing games, exercising, it is a model of what life should be for all of us.
All of us. You touch on obviously the former council member, and that brought up another question in my mind. Obviously, there's a big talk about miscommunication between the mayor and the city of Charleston and his city council members. What is your relationship like and your communication like with you and your city council here in North Charleston?
I was on city council before, and in the administration that I served under, I was not allowed to talk to any department heads without going through the mayor's office. Well, when I became mayor 25 years ago, that went out the window. And my department heads know that they will respond directly to council members when there's issues that they're facing in their district. Why we're not going to make it a climb the ladder to get to it. Go directly to it. And if it's something that we can do, then we let the folks know that we're able to do it in a timeline. If it's something that we can't do, then we inform them of whom they may need to contact that does that other than us, because it's something that's not in our purview that we can do. Or it helps us plan for things that we need to do. And the council members, when you come to our meetings, normally our meetings last maybe a third of what the average city council meeting does in anywhere else. And it's because every council member is a member of every committee that we have. So that they are prepared, are given full information so that they can make a decision based upon fact. They can contact the department head, if it's something we're taking up as a public works issue, they can go directly to public works to get their answers. They don't have to come through me. And that has worked extremely well for us. The average vote at our council meeting is a 11-0. Sometimes it might be a 10-1. 10-2 would be a little unusual. And it's because it's interaction and openness and explaining to people why we're doing this, what's the benefits, and we try to make sure that we're doing things in every district to make sure that there's fair and equal things being done across the city, not just in one zone.
You talk about the districts and being fair with what's going on. Let me ask you this, and this I'm going hardball here a little bit.
Right?
Does this city actually have an eviction crisis?
They have a crisis that complies with state law. And there are efforts trying to change some of that. We don't do the evictions. The evictions are done through magistrate court. And my daughter is a magistrate, and she comes home some nights that's frustrated about the number of people that get evicted. And I don't know if it's something that needs to be looked at through the legislature. And I think there's been some efforts in that part. I can tell you this, the local magistrates that I know do not like to deal with landlords that are not being fair, that are not maintaining the people's places they're living in. It's amazing that you'll find one apartment complex that the same rent rates that another. One will have multiple evictions monthly, some will have none. And I think it's because they develop that trust and relationship with that tenant. If this month there's an issue and you can go talk to your landlord and say, this month I'm only going to be able to pay this amount, but I've got this coming up that's going to help me collect.
Sure.
And connect and get it up. The other is, I think the federal government has to start looking at funding more housing support. It's not as active as it used to be in the federal government, dealing with people who make below a certain level of income. Getting on that list is more and more difficult, and that's a federal issue that we try to influence and work with, but we're not always as successful as I would like in that area.
You talked earlier about the department heads, and the Post-Courier wrote this too in the editorial, quote, "The promotion of North Charleston native Reggie Burgess to police chief has earned good early reviews as the department redeploys its officers and works on improving its relationship with a sometimes skeptical community." What are your reviews of Chief Burgess right now, Mayor?
I've known Chief Burgess since he was a sort of a rookie police officer at North Charleston High School when my kids were there. And my son is 42, so he was a young officer at the time. And his personality is one of giving and serving. And he has developed the managerial skills over the year. I would have loved to have appointed Reggie the chief earlier, but I'm not going to appoint someone until they're ready to take the job. And part of that responsibility on me is to make sure that they're trained to get that. They're able to go to look at what's been going on in other parts of the country through training, and he definitely had the personality and the love of people. What he needed was honing in on some of his managerial skills, and I made sure he got that. And because I want him to be extremely successful, and to date, I will tell you that his mayor is very pleased with the job he's doing.
Now, since he's been in that role as police chief, how are residents still skeptical of this police department?
I think anytime an agency has to deal with a situation in a neighborhood and with a family, there's always going to be some skepticism and maybe some look at it's hurting them because somebody in their family got in trouble. It's hurting them because something happened that's not pleasurable to them. And we can't handle that. We can't stop that. We can try to slow down those type of activities and develop trust. And it starts with our kids. That's a generational thing. And so we have to develop that. And so we were very active in the schools. We were the first city in the country, I think, that put a police officer in every school on our dime, not the school district. Right. And the activities that we do with children through camps with the police officers. We have girls football that all the teams are coached by law enforcement. Develop those relationships where it has to be understood by these kids that these are folks that grew up in this community. They are here to do a job that pays them to do it, but also it's a chance for them to enhance the quality of life of people. And I will tell you that I think the overwhelming majority of our officers feel that way. It took us a long time after the shooting 5 years ago to build our department back up. We had a lot of people who left and got out of law enforcement because of community feelings. You go home to your spouse and they're saying, listen, your kids other kids know that their father's a police officer, and they get picked on about it. I mean, so we lost some good quality people because of that first 2-year cycle. But we've been working diligently to re-stress the fact that our police officers are humans, just like everybody else. They have families in the schools. They live in the neighborhoods. What can we do to make that police officer a recruiter for that 5th grader? That in what they see in that officer, they may desire one day to become an officer as well. And I see the changes. They're not as rapidly changing as much as maybe I would like to. I know they're not as fast as the chief would like to, but it's a slow process, but it has to be consistent. And I think that's what Chief Burgess is doing for us.
Are the officers getting enough racial bias training?
That is something that we work at diligently, and you're dealing with the psychic side of people and how they were brought up, what have you. And I can tell you that through the system that we have undertaken, when we find people that are not open-minded toward all people, we gradually pull the weeds out and make the flowers grow better.
I want to go back to the South End. I wanted to ask this question too, in regards to, here it is actually, I wanted to bring it up, but they said this too, quote, Mr. Summey intends to work with a builder experienced in affordable housing that you just mentioned to construct new homes where land becomes available near the under construction port access road in the south end of the city. How many homes do you want to bring to that area?
Well, what we're looking at in Union Heights in and of itself, not including where the access road is leaving, there's probably 75 to 80 empty lots. And if you go then into Chicora, which has some very good structures that are boarded up. And so we have the ability, I think, between some new construction and rehabilitation of some unused structures, just in the south end between Chicora, Union Heights, and Accoby, I would say there's at least 250 to 300 capabilities of creating a quality affordable housing.
Yes, sir.
I mean, affordable housing is one thing, quality affordable housing, so that it's not, if you're only paying $600 a month for a structure that's costing you $250 a month to maintain, keep it up, then you're at $850. And so what we're trying to make sure is that not only is the affordable housing affordable to rent or buy, it becomes affordable in maintaining it and doing the maintenance, and not turning around every month and eating into the money that will go to activities for your kids or groceries on your
Table. We talked earlier off camera about, all of us working hard, and I know you want to go to a car auction. But when you take off your mayoral hat, who is our Keith Summey?
First of all, I'm a father and a grandfather and a husband. My family means a lot to me. Debbie and I waited and started our family when I was 30. And my kids have pretty well followed that trend too. So at 72, my grandkids are 10, 9, 8, and 7. So I'm really a grandpa when you're supposed to be a grandpa. I'm not a 45-year-old grandpa. And they're such a blessing to me. And I'm in a stage in my life where I can watch them and enjoy them and attend things that they do. But it's just a happy time for Debbie and me to be able to do that. We don't travel a lot. We love working in our house. My wife especially does. Me not as much as I used to. But I was raised in a rural setting as a small child in a not impoverished, but we didn't have a lot. We didn't know it because a lot of people didn't, and we were the same. I mean, I had 3 pairs of pants and 3 shirts and 1 sweater I ordered from Spiegel, Chicago, 9, Illinois, and the only difference in the winters I put the sweater over the short sleeve shirt, and that lasted me for that year, and then I outgrew it. And hopefully there was somebody in the family we could pass it down to. Yeah. But I was raised in a loving environment where I had parents that I knew loved me. Most of the kids I was around were in the same boat that I was in. There wasn't any jealousy or competition to have what others had. We didn't have the activities that we offer here in this city today for our kids because, it just wasn't done back in the 50s. I played football in elementary school, but there was only 2 elementary schools and we played each other every week. I mean, it was a thing that it's just the way it was. But I am a religious person. I believe that I'm not as smart as my Creator, and so sometimes I need to ask Him for guidance and direction. I also know that I'm not as smart in all levels and fields as some people are, and I reach out to them for information, some guidance in making decisions. I have a managerial methodology where all my employees, if they've got an idea, especially with my department heads, and they come up with a thought process, and it may be anti to one that I came up with, if they can convince me why we should follow that line, I'll listen to them. I mean, I'm not a dictator. I am a leader, and a good leader listens and opens up their mind and their heart to the people they serve and the people that serve with them.
In one word, why should voters re-elect you?
Well, I think that I have proven that I have this community to heart. Um, we've made very good progressive change. Some of the areas not as rapidly as others, but what we found was more difficult to deal with. What most people fail to realize, when I became mayor, this was a majority white city. I annexed Union Heights, Appleby, Dorchester Terrace, Dorchester Wayland, Brentwood, because they were a part of North Charleston and they should be a part of this city. And with that risk, I was told, by advisors, you're going to create a majority-minority city and you're not going to last. Well, I have lasted.
Yes.
And it's because I think that the majority of the people in North Charleston know, and I don't care what racial makeup that they have, that I do care. Can I accomplish everything that I want to? No. But I will give it a try. And we plan ahead to work things in without having massive tax increases where people can't afford to live here. One of the issues with rental property is that the taxes on rental property are 6% instead of 4% for homeowner occupied. And you pay a school tax on 6% and you don't. So the average house, if it's a rental house, that $2,000 a year in taxes is being paid, and you equate that out to $165 a month in taxes. On the house that they own, it's $850 a year, which equates out to $75, $80 a month. So that reduces the cost of living because you own your structure just in the taxes alone. So we've got to find ways to work, and hopefully the federal government will come back out with more housing programs. The economy in the country has been better, and so there hasn't been the pressure, but it needs to be the pressure. Because if the economy rises and not everybody rises with it, then the economy's failing.
The Honorable Mayor Keith Summey, thank you so much for your time. And again, welcome back to Quintin School South.
Thank you. Always a pleasure.
Likewise. Yes, sir. Thank you.